Everything's melting. Oddly enough, it smells like food out here. I don't understand. I guess it's lunchtime and people are probably cooking at home. I just can't figure out what food it smells like. Underneath all this snow, look, for those who might not know, things do stay green even underneath a couple days of snow. Depends on the things. Pardon the backup beep. I think it's down there somewhere. Huh. That happens sometimes. So things are starting to melt. I woke up this morning and it was 26 degrees, it said. But now it is definitely above freezing and has been. It is currently 11:30, also known as my lunch break, and since I currently work from home, we can have a look around on my lunch break. The birds did eventually figure out that they had a bowl of water, which was good. But I am looking forward to having a heated waterer for this, because twice a day changing a bowl is honestly, it's kind of a lot. Other things that are still green. Well, the hardy gladiola. That's those things sticking up there. But also, look. The leaves on the raspberry are still doing good. I wonder if we have any fruit in there. I don't want to touch it right now, because while the leaves are frozen, they're very fragile. And they won't be able to synthesize if they get bruised too bad while frozen. You have to wait till they fully warm back up and don't have freezing stuff on them. So like this one looks fine. But you can kind of see these ones under here. See how that one folded in half? I don't know how the lighting's treating you for being able to see that. But this one's like folded in half and really wilty. So the ones in contact with something actively frozen for longer, I don't know, some of them are getting kind of sun scorched after having froze. And they'll end up more like this. But some of them, once they thaw out, even though it was in, and I'm talking Fahrenheit numbers here, mid-20s, that's, what, like -4 or 5 Celsius? I don't know, I'm still trying to figure out Celsius. It's not something I was taught at any point in my education. So it's not something I can just convert in my head, but you know, I'm trying. So we're gonna go into another thaw cycle. And so all of these projects where I was talking about digging in the dirt are still very much accessible. Once this thaws out, it's supposed to be 45 tomorrow. What's that, like 15 Celsius? I don't know. I really honestly don't know. But that's well above freezing. 32 is freezing in Fahrenheit. So that's kind of cool. I did not drain this, but I think that's okay. You can kind of see where the water comes out there from the, but the overflow didn't actually bust through. That's fascinating. I wonder what's in there. A rock. Okay, it's open and clear. That's good. We'll see how that goes as it melts up. Because as you can see, the sun has not hit the back of the house yet. So the only places that are melted are the ones that were initially melted. And this gives you a good look at how bare ground versus mulch ground experiences freezing weather. This is basically just cloth on top of bare ground. And even though it's in some of the deepest shade of the yard, almost the deepest anyway, it thawed right on out. Whereas, oh, sorry, I bonked. And that's true here too. And then we have this weird little lump that I don't know why it isn't thawed. But then even just as soon as I have boxes on the ground, it stays frozen. And that's what we have from here on out. There's this little spot where if this ended up overflowing at some point, its seep of the water would have come up the whole way through the mulch right there. And so that's why that right spot is thawed. But everywhere else where I actually have it mulched and that's experienced even barely filtered sunlight, thawed even though we've been under freezing for 2 days. So that's why it's like this. I didn't shovel or anything. And that's the same thing with, this is because I walked here, but it also isn't mulched. It's just bare ground with just a little bit of clover on top. So that's why it thaws so quickly. And freezing and thawing and freezing and thawing and freezing and thawing is not good for plants trying to survive a winter, because every freeze cycle pushes the root system with the icicles, and then it gets stuck with part of its root system above the ground. And then the next freeze cycle, more and more, which is why winter hardiness has gotten a lot more difficult for me as we've started to have these winters where nothing stays frozen. It definitely kills things. Hey, bird. It definitely kills things at a much higher rate than just a solid freeze and stay that way. If this snow just stuck around and weren't leaking and dripping out of the roof, because the sun's hitting the roof first, no, my house isn't leaking, but the box gutter fascia isn't exactly. I do need to get a roof job done eventually. Worried about that. I'm afraid the roofers are gonna like throw stuff down in the garden and kill everything. But this is why every time it melts, it really exposes the plants to a lot of change that they're really not supposed to have to go through. And they have to be extra super hardy in order to handle. And so that's what we're looking at with these types of winters where nothing stays frozen very long. And those are the types of winters that we've consistently been having here for the last 5 years, I would say. Freeze thaw, freeze thaw, freeze thaw. You can see the top of the wood chip pile also is thawed out, but that is because heat rises and piles of organic matter start to compost down, and decomposition is a heat producing process. So that's the heat rising out of, even though straight wood chips are typically a colder process, there are leaves in there, so those have a high nitrogen compared to the wood chips. Usually decomposition in straight wood chips is fungal, and fungal activity is not a heat producing, but decomposition of a high nitrogen rate, such as we do with compost, that is a heat producing activity. And so since that's kind of half and half, the pile is kind of half melted and half not. That's how that goes. It's a coolish, sort of maybe lukewarm decomposition process going over on that leaf pile. So this is just a brief introduction to management of rapid cycling freeze thaw winters. As I'm sure, you know, as Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, USA, because suddenly my audience is international, as we're starting to experience it and we're in zone hardiness 6, I'm sure that this is going to start to be something more people will newly need to accommodate. And I just think that it'll be good to get this information out as to how to keep your plants alive and we can continue to discuss it as the winter continues along. Or if you have any questions, put them in the comments, and I could even potentially, sorry, I knocked down a stick. It was sticking out of there. I could even potentially, you know, do a more organized video on this one with like a pre-thought and a little tiny script or something. I don't know. That if people have very specific questions, I can answer them below, or we can come up with another video and you can just let me know what you think. If this is something coming your way or not. This is also why I don't plant new plants late fall without mulching them with at least 6 inches of mulch. The mulch keeps them from jumping out of the ground, and a plant that doesn't have its roots fully established is at the highest risk of being killed by freeze thaws and being forced out of the earth. So fall plantings are risky with this particular climate phenomena. All right, well, that's a lot of info. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for visiting the cliffside. This has been Permaculture. Take care. Bye.